Welcome to Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, coming to you from Washington, D.C. We are joined by Greg Walden, member of the U.S. Congress representing the state of Oregon. So I want to speak with you about, is it Cover Oregon? Oregon?
Right.
It's seen better days. This is the Affordable Care Act website. Cover California seems to be doing well, not so much in Oregon.
Yeah, I think we're the worst in the nation, sadly so, and a huge waste of money for Oregon taxpayers and federal taxpayers. Upwards of $304 million have been allocated to the state to create a website, an exchange, a very elaborate one, and they decided to do it all on their own, not even use off-the-shelf technologies that would have worked and been available. They wanted to start from scratch. And it is a disaster. No individual has been able to go online and sign up yet.
How did this happen? I mean, this is
That's
Oregon.
the question.
This is a high-tech state.
It is, but it's not the first time state government has caused a problem here.
Right.
Yeah, messed it up. And certainly here, there were lots of alarms and warning bells. They were ignored by the administration there, and there's no good accountability, transparency, and that's why we've asked the Government Accountability Office to investigate.
The federal.
That's right.
GAO.
You know, these were federal tax dollars.
Right.
$304 million allocated. Nothing to show for it. A site that does not work, or at least as of today, does not work.
And Oregon's a state one would have thought would have been at some level favorable.
You'd hope so.
Right.
You'd
at
hope
some level
so.
favorable.
I mean, we've been in the forefront on health reform. When I was in the legislature, we did a lot of very innovative steps to make sure people who had pre-existing conditions had access to health insurance. There are a lot of reforms we drove. But when it comes to this government running websites and creating them, it's a complete, utter, total disaster. Can you imagine what we could have done with $304 million just to help people with health care issues? They can't even get a website to work, and we're not sure who's responsible.
So where does Oregon go from here?
Well, that's the question we're asking the GAO. Are you better to just shut it down and go to the national site?
Healthcare.gov?
How much of the money's actually been spent that they've received? Can you reclaim that? Who's at fault? How did this happen? Where was the federal oversight as they released the tranches of money along the way? Who's watching this story? I was a small business guy for 22 years.
I hear you.
You'd never let this happen.
Speaking of technology, you chair the House Communications and Technology Subcommittee.
Yes,
and
sir.
A while back, I got an email announcing that the FCC had pulled back from an effort to monitor newsrooms. And I thought, what is this? I mean, I'm a journalist. I used to be a lawyer. What is this? What's going on?
So last summer, we got wind of the fact that the Federal Communications Commission had commissioned a study to go in and ask journalists how they made their decisions, what stories they covered. Had anyone ever overridden one of their decisions? If so, why? How did that affect them? This is an extraordinary intrusion into First Amendment rights. They're looking to see if the communities are being served by content.
I mean, I would be interested to know the results more for academic reasons, but this, when you have a government doing it.
And worse than that, Brad, worse than that, when you have the government piece doing this that also decides whether you keep your license or whether you meet a community need. I mean, this is Fairness Doctrine 2.0.
It got shut down.
Finally, because we raised such a stink about it. I threatened to do a hearing and pass a bill to kill it. Ajit Pai, who's one of the commissioners in the FCC, a Republican, did an op-ed really putting it out to the world. Fred Upton and I, chairs the full committee, we sent a letter to the commission under its new leader, Tom Wheeler. We said this has to stop. And so we've been pushing on them, and they initially suspended, they were going to rewrite, they were going to make it First Amendment compliant, and then eventually they figured out this was not where the government belonged as speech police from Washington and newsrooms of America.
In our final moments, I know that you got a bipartisan bill passed through the House on forests. Is that correct? Congratulations. It's a miracle.
You know, I think we're all tired of choked valleys in the summer with fires, whether you're in California or Oregon. We can do a better job as stewards of those lands and produce jobs in our rural communities, revenues for basic services, and end up with a healthier environment. We ought to all be for that. We proved it in the House. We could find bipartisan votes.
His name is Greg Walden, member of the U.S. Congress. My name is Brad Pomerance. We thank you so much for joining us from Washington, D.C.